There is a deep reason you were made. The probability of you being alive is 1 in 10 with 2.7 million zeros behind it. And maybe you've been searching, scrolling, trying to figure out why you're here, trying to figure out truth. We are living in a generation where the suicide rate is out of control. Anxiety is through the roof. And maybe you do not know your next step in life. Or maybe you think you know, or maybe you've hit a wall of existential crisis. And I'm a part of this generation looking for answers, and I think I've come to the conclusion in answering the question of why we are here. I've come to realize that the answer our generation seeks is in this book. And you don't have to turn far. In Genesis chapter 1, we start to see God's reason for creating us. God shows up to Moses and the Israelites as Yahweh, the Hebrew word for I am, basically saying nothing in this life completes him. God is already whole. He is who he is. And I believe God himself is made up of love. And out of that outpouring of love, and to paraphrase what Jonathan Edwards has said, a fountain's character is to overflow. So right there, Genesis chapter 1, let there be light. And then skip down to verse 26, let us make man in our image. So we are to be made in the likeness of God. And then God says to us, be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and subdue it. It can be a whole lot of things. We can see God's authority being placed on us. We can see God's mandate to go and send out. But the clearest picture I see is God is calling us to create. I see this journey of creating into 3 parts: what we create, how we create, and why we create. And so the first part, what we create, starts with a story by J.R.R. Tolkien, who wrote the best-selling novel series Lord of the Rings. Back when he was trying to write this series, he planned out for decades what he was trying to write, and he stumbled onto writer's block. To get him out of this writer's block, he actually wrote this short story. And so this short story follows this man named Nigel, and he's a painter, and he has this ambition to paint this beautiful, 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 huge tree. But along his life, he knows he's supposed to be taking a journey, which is a metaphor for death. But all along the way, he keeps getting interrupted by his neighbor, his townspeople, different things in his life keeps him from finishing this painting. He's the type of person that obsesses over little details. And so come to find out, by the end of his life, his ambition was this large tree, but all he had was this very beautiful leaf. And so you may ask, as children of God, as people on the earth, as creatives, what are we creating? We are creating leaves, just like Nigel. And in this life, I feel like we just get so anxious to be the next thing. The things that social media is pushing out is to be the next big thing, to have it all together. But what we come to realize is what we are called to create is something, yes, ambitious, but it's a part of a bigger story. And so at the end of the story with Nigel, he is in the afterlife on a train. And once he gets off the train, he steps into a meadow, and in the middle of a meadow was the tree that he imagined, more beautiful than ever. And that's what I believe, that as children of God, as people that are following Jesus, we are going to imagine that beautiful tree. And in this life, we may only get a leaf, but I believe that if we keep going, keep painting, keep pressing through, we'll see that it wasn't in vain. Okay, so great. We have these leaves, and I know we're all part of this bigger story, and we're painting this tree, and it may all sound kind of crazy right now, but how do we do it? And I love Genesis chapter 1 because I feel like it brings the blueprint. God, in the story of the Bible, if you don't know this, he shows up with different names. His people call him different names, and we get to call God by many different names. And the reason for that is to show and reveal his attributes. But the first quality of God that we get introduced to in the Bible is as creator, as the creator of the heavens and the earth. And the first thing he does is calls light into existence, bring light into darkness. And then the next thing he does is he brings order out of chaos. How do we create? How do we go about in our life? We bring light to dark places. We bring order into chaos. And I'm not just talking about videographers or creative people. You may be a stay-at-home mom or dad or a janitor, and you get to set the atmosphere of peace in your home, in your school. You may be a CPA working with numbers, crunching it, taking your clients' crazy numbers and putting order into that Excel spreadsheet. What I'm saying is this is a mandate for all people of God, that this is the reason you were born, to take the chaos and bring order, to take dark places and bring the light of Christ. I'll give you an example. I have a friend and coworker of mine who's a wedding videographer. Weddings are absolutely crazy, especially if you're working one. I've had the pleasure of working alongside of him on these jobs, and these days are absolutely hectic, but he is so skilled and has done this enough. No matter what is thrown at him, he gets the job done. And at the end of the day, he's recorded this beautiful, beautiful day. And then in several months down the line, he creates a beautiful video capturing their day. That's just a great example of taking a chaotic day and bringing order. And so even seeing all these things, what makes us wake up and do it? What gives us that drive? And I believe if we get the heart of God, it will give us that drive. So why do we create? Ephesians 2:10 sums it up the best. It says, "For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared ahead of time for us to do." Now, workmanship, and it's translated multiple different ways in different translations, but in the Hebrew, it can mean poem or beautiful poem. We are God's beautiful poem. That's how he sees us. So we get to create because of the love that God has for us. That his love is actually the power and the sanctifying work on our heart. Now, we have a choice. In Genesis, it also talks about a group of people building a tower to build to the heavens. And the line they say is, we are going to build to make a name for ourselves. And the late Tim Keller said this in a book that I absolutely love. We either get our name, our defining essence, security, worth, and uniqueness from what God has done for us and in us, or we make a name through what we can do for ourselves. Why do we create? We create for his name, for his glory. That is the most satisfying thing we can do. The TikTok game, the influencer game, the things that we do in this life, maybe climbing the corporate ladder or looking the best on social media, it's exhausting. It's a rat race we were not made to do. We were made to have authority over the earth, first and foremost, but now as Christians, we are called to bring light into darkness, to bring order out of chaos. And there's been so many times that my God-given gifts have been a temptation to be used in the wrong direction. And there is a gift, I know there is, each and every person has a gift, a talent, something that you do that no one else can do, that God has given you. And I pray that you would lean into that. Remember, you are his beautiful poem, still being written line by line. We are created to create. Love you.